Welcome back to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast. We believe that discipleship should not be difficult, so we're here to help you connect the dots between church and home. Together, let's guide each generation, whether related to you or not, to stand confident in their faith. I'm your host, Ron Hunter, and with me as always is my co-host, Marianne Howard.
Okay, so you have a sweetie preschool granddaughter that I love so much, and so we're going to be talking about you have three of them. I know
three
Kinsley.
of them.
I
yes.
know, I think of Kinsley, but I forget you have three of them. Oh my goodness! Actually, you have four grandchildren.
Four grandchildren,
and
yeah.
So they would kind of all fit into this idea and this conversation today. Yeah. So here's my question: what do you hope your preschooler grandchildren get when they go to church? What do you hope they get when they go to church?
I hope they absolutely do a couple of things. I hope, number one, they make a connection with their teachers. Whoever is around them, the teachers, the volunteers, that they feel loved, they feel valued, and as a result, fall in love with Scripture and Jesus Christ. That's my hope. That's it.
That's so good. That's so good. And today, that's exactly what Dr. Melia brings to our attention, is how to make the most of preschool ministry. And it is a ministry. Let's listen to this quick clip from Dr. Melia as she begins this interview.
Because D6 says, in every experience of life, what are you doing? You're pouring into your kids' lives. And so it's all along the way, and it's constantly developing. So literally the sky's the limit for preschoolers. You're on the ground floor, you're a brain architect, their brains are malleable, they can grow and they can learn, and experiences are what help them learn.
So there's lots of opportunity based on this little clip that Dr. Melia says about the mind of a preschooler and the heart of a preschooler. So we have a huge opportunity. And so I just want to encourage you to listen to this and listen for something new. To our listeners, listen for something new and think about your preschool ministry and what is something new that you can take away from what Dr. Melia gives us that you can implement into your church preschool ministry. Let's give this interview a listen. Are you feeling overwhelmed as a parent or burnt out in ministry? You're not alone, and you don't have to stay there. D6 Conference 2026 is coming to Nashville and Seattle to offer fresh hope and practical help for every season of life. Whether you're navigating parenting, leading in ministry, or just trying to stay afloat, you'll hear from leading experts in discipleship, marriage, leadership, parenting, children's ministry, and more. Walk away with practical tools, renewed purpose, and the spiritual rest you've been craving. To learn more, visit d6conference.com or click the link in the description.
Right now, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Shelly Melia. Dr. Melia serves as the Associate Dean of the Graduate School of Ministry and Professor of Childhood Education at Dallas Baptist University. She oversees the Master of Arts in Family Ministry and Master of Arts in Children's Ministry. Prior to coming to DBU, she served as a children's minister for over 25 years, and she is also a licensed professional counselor. Dr. Melia, thank you for being here again.
Thank you. It's always fun to be at D6.
Well, I'm excited about what we're talking about today because it's very personal to me. And we're talking about how ministry is more than childcare, especially children's ministry. And we're even going to narrow it down to preschool ministry and talk about the principles for spiritual formation. And that is so important to me because I have a preschooler and I am the dad who's trying to do my best and many times feels like I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yes.
My kid and I have very different personalities, and so I don't get to parent myself. I'm parenting something that seems so foreign to me.
Yes.
So we're going to talk and you're going to help me. And if other listeners want to join in too, if they're here, that's great. But this one's for me.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to this. But it's very easy to overlook how much preschoolers can learn. I've done that with my own child and then I'm shocked. And now that I have this preschooler, now that I have Thomas, I've realized how smart he actually is and how smart his friends are and the things they're learning. What has research told us about how much these kids are able to comprehend?
So research is a beautiful thing, and really we know so much more about early childhood, brain development, all those types of things. But what we know is that even in utero, babies are beginning to make connections. There's neurons firing and synapses happening, and so the babies and preschoolers in our churches, their brains are literally being wired as they're growing up. And so I think the mistake that we might make is that we forget that their receptive language is much greater than their expressive language. So you measure maybe what you think how your son's doing by what he can express, right? So if he can say certain words or read things or whatever, but the reality is before they ever express things through language, they're receiving things into that brain and making all these connections. And so really and truly, Deuteronomy 6, which is the whole theme verse of this conference, is based on brain research, because D6 says, in every experience of life, what are you doing? You're pouring into your kids' lives. And so it's all along the way, and it's constantly developing. So literally the sky's the limit for preschoolers. You're on the ground floor, you're a brain architect. Their brains are malleable, they can grow and they can learn, and experiences are what help them learn.
That's good. Well, when a church is examining its approach to ministry, preschool ministry doesn't always get a heavy focus. Sometimes we start our ministry, quote unquote, about first grade, and we think children's ministry and then on up. And you use that phrase, more than childcare. And sometimes we just view preschool ministry as childcare. Sometimes we don't even view it as ministry. Right. It's just childcare. How should we be viewing preschool ministry?
Well, I think you've said it really well already, that it's not just childcare. It's not a service only. It is a ministry. So sometimes we just think about it. This is something, a service we have to provide to get adults here to do what's really important. And I think churches that do it really well understand, yes, it's partially a service, but for those who approach it as an essential ministry, they approach it a totally different way, so that when kids show up, no matter how old they are, whether they're 2 weeks old or 10 years old, they understand that they want to teach them biblical content at the age and the stage that they're at. And so ministry to preschoolers is not just a service. It's actually an essential starting point of a strategy that's a lifetime. And so we don't want to waste those moments and waste those opportunities to really make all of the connections, to give them those experiences that will help wire their brain to understand biblical concepts.
And you talked about that starting point, and we mentioned at the beginning you had over 25 years of experience in children's ministry. What advice would you give to those churches who are thinking, yeah, okay, I see the need, I have no idea where to start because we don't know how to deal with kids at all?
Well, I think you build what you believe. Right? So if I believe it's just childcare, then I'm going to build a system that just is childcare. But if I believe that this is ministry and that I'm laying spiritual foundations for kids that are going to serve them well for the rest of their life, then I think you begin to have that proper focus to say, okay, are we maximizing everything that we do with our preschoolers? And how can we invite people into that space that are equipped, people who are equipped and people who are passionate about teaching at the age that the kids are. And so speaking into those babies' life by singing over them, praying over them, showing the Bible, by teaching toddlers songs that are simple but teach them about God's love. I think you have to start really simple, but the really most important starting point is, what do you really believe about preschoolers? And if you believe they learn, and you believe that you're supposed to be a steward of the time that these parents give to you, then I think it changes everything. If you just believe that you've just got to kind of keep them over here and keep them quiet while all these other important things happen, then I don't think you're ever going to really maximize the time that you have with those preschoolers particularly.
I love what you said, because I think everybody in the church would agree that our kids are precious. We're not. Sure. There's no one in the church that's going to argue against that. But sometimes it becomes let's find a way to entertain our kids while mom and dad are in church or while
Right.
mom and dad are worshiping. So it just
Right.
becomes occupying that 2 hour slot or 1 hour slot, whatever it is, forgetting that there's so much that can be happening there. And you used the phrase spiritual formation. I love that foundation right there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about these principles for spiritual formation in preschool ministry.
Children's ministry curriculum is either too expensive, too hard to prep, or too theologically shallow. It feels impossible to find a curriculum that is both biblically rich and easy to use. That was before Elements Kids Worship. Elements Kids Worship delivers biblically rich content that captures kids' attention and points their hearts to Jesus, all while cutting Sunday school prep in half. Perfect for Sunday mornings or midweek programs, Elements equips you with 52 weeks of printable lessons, plug-and-play videos, and ready-to-go slides, all at a price that won't break your ministry budget. And here's what makes it different. Elements is designed to help you partner with parents, because discipleship doesn't stop when kids walk out of the room. It keeps going at home where faith really takes root. To learn more or download a month-long free sample, visit d6family.com/elements or click the link in the description.
We are back, and we're talking to Dr. Shelly Melia about principles for spiritual formation in preschool ministry. Now, I know that you've developed 3 principles for spiritual formation. Can you discuss those principles with us?
Sure. So the way I like to think about it is in order for spiritual formation to happen, you have to be pretty intentional, right? It doesn't just happen. And so I like to say that we need to have a preschool ministry where we have hands full, minds open, and hearts engaged. And so each part of that is an important aspect of what we try to do in children's ministry. And so if we just look at the first one, hands full, I think you as a dad know that your son likes to have his hands full.
Oh, yes.
Right? He wants to do. He doesn't want to just listen. He wants to do. And so preschoolers learn best by doing, and they learn best through their senses. So the more senses, the more things they can touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, the stronger the connections in their brain are going to be wired. And so as we think about teaching preschoolers and even actually adults, we like activity, but we want to remember that kids need to have their hands full. They need to have opportunities to play out the stories that they hear. They need opportunities to be creative and to be curious. And we just need to remember that physical activity actually improves their brain function. So whereas adults, we can sit and listen for 30 minutes, a preschooler can learn so much more if they're able to be physically active. And I found that kids often talk more when their hands are busy. So I teach kindergarten Sunday school, and so I will play with Play-Doh with the kids, and it's amazing the conversations you can have when everybody around the table is doing something with their hands, right? And so hands full is an important distinctive of preschool ministry, is that you want them to have those opportunities, multisensory 3D experiences. We don't want to just do worksheets, because kids can learn a lot more by touching something, by feeling something, by exploring something. And so the first one is hands full. The second one is minds open. And we sort of already hinted on that, but the child's brain is 90% developed by the time they're 5. So it's this period of rapid growth, their brain is. And again, their receptive language is much more developed than their expressive language. And so what we're doing is feeding them that receptive language, teaching them the language of the faith. And so cognitive development matters. It matters that we think about how kids think. I tell people, like, most of us enjoy acting like a child, and that's pretty easy, especially if we love kids. We enjoy playing like a child, but we often forget, what is it like to think like a child? What is it like to be a 4-year-old who hears for the first time about creation or hears for the first time about the cross? We forget that they don't have all those little file folders in their brain for all those concepts. And so we want to be very intentional to give them content that hits them where they're at and pushes them just a little bit further. We don't want to frustrate them. We don't want to teach them concepts that they're not ready for, but we want to meet them where they're at so that they can learn. And they learn through stories and repetition. So that's good news for us, because there's lots of wonderful stories in the Bible, and we can repeat them because the repetition is enjoyable for them. That's how they gain mastery and self-confidence and all those types of things. So hands full, minds open, and then the last principle, I think, is hearts engaged. So it's not just about pushing information or giving them experiences. It's also about how do they feel when they're at church. We want church to be a place where they feel loved, a place where it feels like family. And so relationships have to be a priority. And that's why I think the best Sunday school teachers are the ones who are there every week, right? They're the ones who know the kids. They know their likes, their dislikes. They know their quirkiness. They know the things that that they need to watch out for. And so relationships really drive that heart engagement. And it's not just relationships with the kids, it's also relationships with the parents. So you, as the parent of Thomas, probably have felt when someone loves your Thomas, you love them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, all you have to do to make me melt is tell me something that my child did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I've got this connection with you because I realize you understand my child and you love my child. And so I think that's part of the beauty of preschool ministry is when you're a preschool parent, you are hungry to know you're doing the right things. You're hungry to know that you're on the right track. Because again, it's not like preschoolers can say to you, hey, Dad, you're doing a really great job, or hey, Dad, you really need to work on this. But when adults who are around your kids say, wow, I noticed he's already reading, or I noticed he has such an empathy for other kids, it gives you a little bit of a reading on your child. So I think that preschool parents are tender towards teachers who will try to engage with them about their child. Because all of us, like you said, want to be great parents.
Yeah. And you're making me think of my own church, where there are people that are in my Sunday school class who spend a lot of their time also in that ministry. And so I try to tell them, thank you for investing in my child. Thank you for loving my child, because that is making a long-term difference. It's not just a single Sunday difference, but that is really affecting him for his lifetime. And I think that's so good.
I think that's a great point, because even as a teacher, it feels so good to know that a parent notices that I'm loving their child and I'm teaching them. So I think that's a great point too, is to encourage parents to be engaging with teachers, because sometimes you're not sure. Sometimes you're not sure if you're hitting the target. And so to have a parent say, hey, thank you, that means a lot.
And for me as a parent, it's so good to know I'm not having to do this alone.
Right.
I think there's so much comfort in numbers and realizing I am not living in isolation. So to bring this to the home a little bit, what can parents do with their preschooler to continue facilitating this growth that they're seeing through the church?
I mean, I think that a lot of parents are already trying to do some things, such as prayers at bedtime, mealtime, those types of things. But I think as church, we can kind of give parents cues as to what's happening at church so that they can carry it on to what's happening at home. And so parents who want to know what did their child learn, or even in the ways that we greet parents and we say goodbye to kids, where we say, hey, Thomas had a great time learning today about creation. I've given you a cue for something that you can follow up on. And so I think just reminding parents as well that this is the time to build those connections in the brain, because we want eventually not just to be a connection in the brain, but a rut, like something that's been used so much that we will never forget what it feels like to be loved, what it feels like to know that God loves them, and to know those spiritual concepts that we want them to know and to understand.
Well, I want to close by asking you a question about how we measure this growth, because with my 5-year-old, he's not deciding if he's going to church on Sundays. It's just happening. He's not driving himself there. He's not going to his room and opening his Bible and reading a chapter a day, because he's not reading that far yet.
Right.
So how can we measure if our efforts are being successful with this age group?
You know, I think that's the challenge, right, is that we don't have a way to scientifically measure what's happening in the life of a child. But we can get some clues about it. We can see when they're excited about going to church. When church is a place they want to be, then we know that what's going on at church is very, very positive. Kids will often be more spiritual than we realize through their prayers, through their prayer requests.
Yes.
And so there's little cues along the way, the tenderness that they have towards other people, the recognition of God's creation and a beautiful sunset. And as parents, we can point them to that as well. But I think that's the challenge, is that there's not like a thermometer you can put in their mouth and say, let's see how you're doing spiritually. But certainly we can begin to see cues, and we can begin to see the prioritization of the family towards that to know if we're doing a good job as a church. So because young parents, I think, are so tender towards what's going on with their kids and in need of relationships, because some of my best friends, we became friends when our kids were preschoolers, right? And so when those relationships are happening in the church, and when those parents are volunteering in the preschool ministry, you know that they've bought into it, and you know that they want to be a part of it. And so there's not a magical formula, but I think for me as a teacher, I can see those kids in the way they respond to things and in the way they pray that tell me that something is happening inside their heart.
Well, this has been very enriching for me as an adult, as a parent. I know those listening who are involved either in preschool ministry or have preschoolers or know that they need to start this ministry. It's been very helpful for them. I think this is eye-opening as we realize that we don't start doing ministry later on. We don't start once they start elementary school. We start much earlier than that. So thank you so much for sharing this, because I think this is a big help for many parents out there, that for them to realize, yes, we can start earlier than we thought, because our kids are able to understand these concepts. And like you said, spiritual formation starts early. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we understand why Dr. Melia is a Gen A expert,
Yes.
why she can talk so competently about each of these areas. I loved her three principles for spiritual formation. That was my favorite. She
Yeah.
said, hands full, minds open, hearts engaged. That's exactly what we want. Goes back to a previous podcast where we were talking about the feelers versus the thinkers. And she's
Mhm.
like, no, it's not an either or, it's both
Both
and.
and. Yeah.
And then add the tactile experience to drive it all home. Absolutely
Mhm.
love that about her. What was your favorite on this one?
I really love that she has a heart and a passion for casting vision to volunteers and helping volunteers really see this as an opportunity to pray and pour Jesus into babies, but it also in
Mm,
preschoolers, but it's also an important time to connect with parents. If you think about your children and their engagement in their little babies when they first had their babies, that's when we're the most
mm,
that's when we're the most engaged into our children. We're watching them blink, we're watching them eat, we're watching
yeah.
them walk and talk. And so this is now the time to start getting families and parents engaged in spiritual formation and equipping them and giving them a vision for what it could look like. And this is such a vital ministry. And can I just say on a side note, I think D6 curriculum has one of the best nursery curriculums out there
Hmm.
because it pairs so beautifully with what Dr. Melia is saying. It's not just a curriculum, it's not just babysitting, it is literally a ministry. And the components of our nursery curriculum partner with parents. And so I just love that those two things go together. So if you're not familiar with our D6 curriculum, nursery curriculum, check it out. It is so good and it goes perfectly with what Dr. Melia is saying today.
That's right. So churches send those tools home with moms and dads. Dads and moms, let me reverse that. Dr. Amelia says, to measure this, you watch the excitement in your kids' faces and in their demeanor. And let's see if we can't get down at the bedside, teach them how to pray, pray
Mhm.
over meal times. They may not get it right every time, but challenge your kids to have those conversations, engage their heart, engage their mind, and engage the activities of their lifestyle so that they will fall in love with Jesus Christ the way they see it in mom and dad.
That's right. Join us next week as we hear from Arlene Pelicane, and she is going to talk to us about marriage from her new book, and you are not going to want to miss this interview. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please consider subscribing or leaving a 5-star review. It helps us out so much when you do that. To learn more, visit d6family.com. We look forward to seeing you next week.